That the cat is in this tree here. Ideally, when you go to set your lines, which is the preliminary to getting your rope up there, is getting this guy here up over a branch. You want to get this higher than the cat is. So if the cat's 20 feet, don't throw this at 20 feet. Try to get at least 30 feet up above the cat. Because if you get below the cat, or even on the same branch that the cat's on, once you get up there, you're not going to be able to reach on top of the branch to get to the cat. So you want to aim a bit higher. So do a tree inspection, make sure the tree's safe to climb prior to even setting the lines up there. Make sure there's no power lines going to the trees, things like that, bees nests, wasp nests, and that's what your ground assistant can be doing as well as you're getting your gear ready, is just doing this visual tree inspection. We figured out the tree's safe. Cat's been up for at least 3 days, so now the hardest part, well, one of the most challenging parts, is getting the rope into the tree. So this can take anywhere, one throw to a couple hours trying to get a line into the treetop. So be patient with that. Different ways of throwing it. We're not going to go over a class on how to throw these right now, but just going to watch here. So I found a good branch I want to go for. Throwing. Let people know you're going to throw so no one's in the way. Take that. So we got the throw bag and throw line up over the branch that we're going for. Now, when I go to pull this up, because of the climbing we're going to do today for the cat rescue is known as single rope technique, we do not need to isolate these two ropes right here. We can kind of keep them further away from each other. But before I pull this rope up, I want to make sure to get what's known as a cambium saver to go up over the branch, so when the rope's feeding down over that branch, it's not cutting into the tree. It's also not going to be damaging the rope. It's also going to kind of cut down on friction if there was a rescue involved too. So now that I got my line set, I'm no longer going to be throwing in the tree. That's when the assistant can start doing the wrap 3, pull 2s to create a ground anchor here. So we can keep the job moving smoothly here. Wrap 3, pull 2s. I'm going to be pulling the rope up. This here is the cambium saver that's going to protect the branch and also cut down on friction as we climb. Going to pre-thread that. The rope running through there so there's no friction on the branch whatsoever now. I am going to pull a bunch of rope through. I do want to tie a little stopper knot on this side. And then I'm going to just bail the rope here so that if we have to rescue the climber, the rope's going to come off the top here nice and smooth. It'll be a nice smooth rescue. If you had another bucket, it'd be a good idea to put the rope inside the bucket. For those that have climbed using ropes and lines and all that, you guys know how easy this stuff can get tangled up. So before going up, I'd make sure that the ground is all cleaned up too, or have your assistant do this. Because if you start coming down fast, because there's bees up there or whatever, and this gets tangled inside that, the 5-minute rescue could turn into a couple-hour rescue then. So really just be mindful of that. What Virginia's doing now is creating an anchor. We're going to climb up that side of the rope. This side here is going to be anchored off to the tree. So as they go up, like I said, if something happens, we can just lower them down from here, bring them back down. We're getting to the purple up. Is the purple higher?
Yeah.
And we'll use the ID you said?
Yeah.
So we're going to use the ID for the basal anchor. When you open this guy up, inside the ID next to the cam, there's a little diagram. It looks like a little loop, or it looks like a branch up there, and that's the side that the rope's going to go on. Make sure you thread this up properly. If it's threaded up the wrong way, you thread it up backwards. Instead of putting it in this way, you put it in this way here. You will not be able to come down. It'll be safe going up, but you won't be able to lower them down. This has got a built-in kind of a panic on it, where these teeth are going to grab the rope, pinch the rope here, and it's going to be just a static anchor for you. So really make sure, and then whoever your assistant is, have them double check that too, that it is threaded up the right, proper way. When you're putting this onto the wrap 3 pull 2s, you want to make sure that the gold plate is going to be facing the tree, so you can operate the handle. If you have it turned this way here, the handle is going to be pinched up against the tree. It's going to be harder to operate it. And then also, ideally, the carabiner gate is going to be away from the trunk of the tree too, so we're not putting that extra pressure on the weak spot of the carabiner. With these IDs, how to lock them off, you're going to take the handle and just push it all the way down there. You start to hear a little click. And then I like to do a little safety knot right behind it. So like with the rack, you're tying another knot up there, just in case it was to slip. The safety knot or the slip knot is going to be a few inches away from the ID. That way, for some odd reason, if this did slip a little bit, that knot's going to jam up in there, so it's not coming down. There's 100 different ways to climb the tree. The system we're going to focus on is known as the yo-yo system, also known as the RADS, R-A-D-S, rope ascending descending system. And it consists of a top ascender. When you put this ascender on, ideally the left-handed ascender, if you're using the Petzls, it's the gold one, not the blue one. You're going to want to have that facing off to your left. The rope is going to go through the handle of the ascender down to your rig or your ID, whatever you're using. Make sure that's threaded up properly. Then the rope is coming out of the rig. It's going to go back up to the ascender through a pulley. Now when creating this, you want to make sure you have a nice clean Z-rig going on with it. You don't want to have it twisted like that. See the difference there? So just keep it nice and clean. And there's a couple spots where you can clip this into. You can clip it into the bottom hole there. You can also clip it into the top hole here. You'll get a little more bang for the buck if you have it in the top hole. The disadvantage to this is that if you have to come down quickly because of bees or whatever, you gotta actually reach up, unclip this to be able to come on down. Where if it's clipped in down here, you can just take that off and come down. So pros and cons to it. With having ground support, where someone else can lower you down, I would take advantage of this upper hole here and just be sure to capture the rope and the ascender. Sometimes people like to bring it in like this way, and now it's putting this weird torque on the rope and not going to be quite as clean. So before I stick that in though, I'm going to use my foot loop. Come up, this will go in just like this. And now, when I get ready to clip onto the rope, I'll clip in down here into this carabiner, and then to advance, I'll just be pulling down this rope, and that's going to advance me up. But before we actually even clip onto the rope, I want to do what's known as a bounce test. You ideally do not bounce test this with your weight on it. If you sit on this here and you jump and you bounce, and if that branch breaks, well, you're connected to the branch. So you're going to do the bounce test without being clipped to the rope, so if you need to escape, you can get out quickly. If you got 2 people, which ideally you'd have 2 people doing this bounce test with you, just make sure before you bounce, you communicate with each other which way are you going to run. If the branch does break, are you going to go that direction or that direction? Just so you're not the Keystone cops down below bumbling into each other. Kind of showing my age there. You guys know who the Keystone cops are. So just be sure to get that bounce test done first. And then before you clip on, you're going to be doing these, what I call a bark check, B-A-R-C. You're going to be checking your belt, make sure your saddle, you got everything on it you need. Your ditty bag, your cat bag, your lanyard, if you're going to need a lanyard, water bottle, cat food. If you go up to do the cat rescues, one great way to bring the cat to you is just open up a can of its favorite food. You know, instead of just reaching for the cat, climb above it, talk to the cat as you're going above it, and then lower yourself back down towards it. I've just found out over the years, if I go straight up towards the cat has a tendency to take off. But if I go up above it first, and then come back down towards it, it just, some reason it just works smoother that way. But open up the can of cat food, and usually when it hears that, the cat goes, meow, meow. And I'll just smear the food on the branch, let the cat walk to me, and then I'll have the pillowcase on my lap with the can of cat food in the pillowcase all opened up. And then as the cat gets closer and closer, try to grab it, stick it on my lap inside the pillowcase. And then as it's eating, that's when I'll take the bag and try to wrap it around the cat. Versus grabbing the cat and trying to stick it in the bag, it ain't gonna work. The cat's gonna do this, and it'll be really difficult. So smear the cat food on, bring it to you. Once the cat gets on your lap, close the bag up, and then you'll be ready to head on down. But before you even start climbing, these bark checks, so your belt, what's on the belt? Cat bag, cat food, water, whatever you need. The A stands for your anchor. So your anchor is the branch that the rope is over. So you want to make sure it's a nice solid branch. You're also going to follow that rope all the way down to our ground anchor, what we got going on here. So here we got the ID, double checking, making sure that it's put on properly, that the gold plate's against the tree, that the knot's there, the handle's locked. And then also if we're going to do a backup on that, just in case something was weird where the green webbing busted on us, you know, or something happened, someone was down with a knife or a saw and somehow nicked it by for some odd reason. Go ahead and put a backed up prusik above the ID. We're doing a 3-wrap or a 6-finger prusik there. And then that is going to clip you another carabiner. That will get clipped onto the purple webbing here. So the webbing above the bottom one. You could clip it to the same webbing. If you did that though, if something happened to the webbing, that's kind of the weakest link in the whole chain is this piece of webbing here. If you were to clip it there, it's not going to do you any good. Something happened to the green, the purple's going to catch. If you were going to clip it to the green webbing, you might want to bring the camera here to see this. If you guys want to step a little bit closer. Ideally, if you clip anything to where an ID or a rig's at, always clip it to the left side of it. Do not put a carabiner on this side, because what can happen, I've seen this happen before, this gate here has pushed this tab up here and has opened up the ID.
Shoot.
So not good. So if you're going to clip it, this is on your saddle or anywhere where you're clipping something next to an ID or a rig, just make sure it's always over to the left. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and put it on the purple. So now we got our backup there, and just a little bit of tension on this. You don't need to make it super tight, but just get it snug. So belt, anchor, I'm just now doing my bark check again. Belt's good. Now the anchor, I'm feeling much better with that. R is the rappelling device. Make sure you got your rappelling device on properly. And also that one there, the retriever. And then C stands for carabiners and connectors. So you're going to be checking the carabiner once it's clipped to your rope. Make sure it's not being cross-loaded. Make sure it's loaded properly. Also, one more time, double checking your saddle, making sure your saddle's put on, the buckles are all clipped in properly. So belt, anchor, rappelling device, carabiners, bark check. Then after that, you'll clip in and start climbing on up. This one here, this is called a rig.
Okay.
R-I-G. So if you know what the gree-grees are,
Yeah,
that's what gree-grees.
I do.
This is like the gree-grees older brother, and then the ID is like the eldest brother, I guess.
Oh.
You know, so kind of just goes from the gree-gree to the rigs to the IDs. So the ID, if you're used to the gree-grees, same with these rigs too. If you pull down too hard, you just come down faster. You know, I mean, it's against our instinct. Whenever you're climbing with these tools, if you get in trouble and start going too fast, the best thing to do is just let go. But our instinct as a human being, we are in trouble, is not to let go. So hold on tighter and contract. And if we do that with this, we're just going to come down even faster. So with the ID, it has a panic stop built into it. So if you pull down too hard, it's going to lock in place, kind of like the seat belt in your car. You know, you got that smooth motion with it, but if you yank on too much, it'll lock. So, cool. Did you want to give a climbing demo in Virginia? Or?
Yeah, great. Somebody who wants to climb? Newer folks, if you are a cat and tree assistant and you're the one that goes to get the gear out of the, it'll be all in the trailer. There's 4 orange buckets. I just grabbed them all because there's 3 different sizes of the saddles, and these are the kind of saddles we use for tree climbing. The new tribe saddles, and then there's a bucket of rope, and that is really easy to forget. And then you get to the collar, and you're like, oh, and then these are the 2 cat and tree blue bags that are attached, and then the green bag. And there's also a slingshot, which is when we need to get lines up really high. It's really helpful. It's in a big pink golf bag. For reference, I'm a medium in the new tribe saddles. So this small is, they're pretty true to size for, and so what he was saying for the belt. So usually I'd bring my lanyard up with me, which is has its own cambium saver. What is that, 20 feet? Yeah, 20 feet usually, yeah. And then your extra throw line for your lanyard, and then there's a pillowcase with attachments for the cat. There's a can of cat food, like Tim was saying in there. There is treats, and what else is in there? Oh, we also have a Felloway cat spray, which you can use that. It's supposed to be the calming pheromones for a cat that you spray all over yourself. Who knows? It could just be water in a container that they charge you for. I'm not sure.
An expensive snake oil?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Cool.
So, and then you always want to have extra carabiners. Anything that you use up in the tree needs to be a tri-lock, correct? So that just means that you have to do 3 different things to open it. And it's good to practice trying to do it with one hand, as often you're one-handed up there. So that's just something to practice with. And then I like to have third hand clips on me as well when I go up. So
one thing that is important, especially for the new folks, make sure you're using one of these new tribe saddles. Don't grab the rock climbing one or something like that. These are designed to support your weight for a long period of time. The rock climbing harnesses are not. They're designed to catch you in case of a fall. People have actually died from rock climbing harnesses. It's known as harness hang syndrome or suspension trauma. And that's because the webbing is much thinner on the leg straps, so it just pinches off the blood flow and doesn't allow the blood to get back up to the heart so it can circulate through the body. So you guys, I know you got a few different saddles, so just make sure you get the right one for that. So.
And make sure that you're clipping into that top center. Make sure. So this needs to be like so. how I remember it is just, it's easy to get twisted up too, so you want to make sure you're in line and the gold faces you. And then, shake it. You want the lock facing out so you're not rubbing it against your body.
Yeah, tree climbing, sometimes it's actually better to have this inside.
Okay.
Because when it's less of a risk if it's rubbing against your body versus
than
branches.
in the tree.
Than the branches.
Okay.
Rock and climbing off towers and stuff, no, it's the opposite way.
Okay.
Because you're not going to be bumping into stuff, but in the tree, especially with a carabiner like this, if you imagine this is, if I'm climbing like this here, if my hand's a branch, I can open this up just by hitting a branch. You know, so definitely keep those gates facing towards you, especially if this type of a triac carabiner is going on versus the ball locks. Ball lock doesn't really matter so much.
Alright. So once you have your weight on the rope, we do want to say, you know, on rope. And like that is way better with it up top. It's just so much, yeah, you get way more bang for your buck.
Yeah, you really do.
So
as she stands up, she's just pulling the slack out with the right arm. Her right leg's doing most of the work. Her left arm's kind of pulling her chest towards the rope, so she's got to pull up quite all of her weight. But the leg's doing the majority of it. And the nice thing with this system is that she can go up and down the same system. She doesn't have to switch over to a rappelling device or anything like that.
I'll show the foot loop real quick.
Yep.
If you don't like, you can, so, okay, I'll come down a little bit and then you want to lower me?
Yes.
Okay, so, good.
So this is where you got to take that off first. So what I would recommend before you even take that off, lower the sender down.
Yep.
Take that foot loop
Yep.
and clip that foot loop to your third hand.
Okay.
And you've locked the rig at this point.
What's that?
She locked the rig
yes.
first.
Yeah. Yeah, good habit there. Yeah. Now, when you take that carabiner off that top of cinder, you're not going to risk dropping it. Exactly.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and now that you can even let that hang down. You let that go; it'll just slide down the rope.
Right.
And then now you take that cinder off. Just be careful so you don't drop that. And if we get a formal class, we'll talk about how to remove that where you don't risk dropping it as well.
There we go. Okay. So there's kind of a lip on the back side of this. And now make sure your rope is kind of, that'll give you, and keep your hand down at your right side. That'll kind of help you control it. If you're up here, so, and then just slowly.
One of the hazards of coming down is the hair, and that hair can get sucked into that device. And it's usually when people are coming down, they start looking around, and when they turn their head, and that's when it gets. And if your hair gets stuck in there, it's definitely going to be a rescue. Yeah, or a free haircut. It usually looks like a free haircut. So if something happens, or if she gets up there and she just got the cat in the bag and she's having to really calm it down, it's freaking out in the bag, she may not be able to use her hands to come down, you know, so why not just assist and bring her down and help her out that way. So to do that, we got a little bit of tension on this Prusik. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to lower this guy down. I got all the weight now transferred over to the ID. So with that there, I got a couple options. I can take this Prusik off completely before I lower her down, or if I leave it on, what I'm going to do is as I pull the handle down here, I'm keeping a little friction here. I'm gonna keep my fingers on that prusik too, and just slowly lower her down, just like that. Try to keep an eye so you make sure she's coming down on the right side of the branches. If I went too far, I can just stop there, lock it back off if need be. But anyone else want to lower her down? Anyone?
It's good practice.
You won't need gloves with it, but if there's a helmet, it all depends on the architecture, where the rope's going to be going and all that. You know,
It's not a deal breaker if it's
it's
a
not
birch?
necessarily a deal breaker, but I mean, it can be an oak tree, but it's just small branches up there, or dead, or lightning struck, where now there's ant cavities up there, and there's tons of ants in the trees.
Yeah.
You know, so. And there's some of that stuff you won't know until you get in the tree, and then all of a sudden you're just being bombarded with ants. You know, so. Have you used these before? Nope. So this handle is going to go this direction here.
Okay.
You're just going to slowly pull down here. The other hand's going to hold onto this rope here, and just to help control it, so it's not going too fast.
Okay.
And it doesn't take much. Well, you'll see. You'll find that sweet spot. And if you go super fast, she lives there. So,
Yeah.
Do you say something before you do that?
lowering.
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 Oh, lowering. Oh, yeah.
There it is. Nice.
And remember the button again. Do you ever
No, that's for more the rock gyms when you're having to belay people quickly to feed
Yeah.
the rope through quicker
Okay.
when you don't want it to. Fairly easy.
All right, a little further and okay, on ground.
Oh boy. Do I pull this at all? Or
Nope, you can just leave that there, then she can finish up there, or if we're going to come down.
Thank you.
Now to take the rope out, but you load it up. You see that little diagram there? So
Bye, Stefan.
Look at that kind of like as a choking curve on top. So that's what that's going to
You just ignore.
to the bridge. Yeah, the horse is going in this direction because now it's going to the bucket. This is called the nose on these guys. And the way I think about it with my 12-year-old boy humor is that the rope's running out of there, so it's a runny nose. So as long as the nose is running, not going up, it's not a stuck-up nose, it's a runny nose. That's the way I'm visually, or talking myself through it too. So yeah, go ahead, take this off. Now when you take this and push it this way, but you have to make sure it's perpendicular. You don't want to have it at a weird angle. It'll be hard to get off. So.
Yes.
Cool. So let's do this. Go ahead and take the rope out again.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm having trouble with my knees.
Close your eyes. Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato. All right, now go ahead and put it back on. Yeah.
Cycling is helping. I'm suffering. I did a 27-mile ride last week.
Good. Yep.
this has actual hand on it too.
Yep. Exactly. So that's where that brake hand's going to
Yeah.
be at.
Okay. And then this would be loaded so that the gold is against the tree.
Correct. Yep. And we're going to use the bottom one there, just because we're using this as our
As our
backup
backup,
above.
okay.
Yeah.
And then ideally the gate would also be.
For just the way it is. Yep. So there's a little tension here then.
And then this handle goes this way. Lock it.
Yep.
And then
And
to
then-
lower would be.
Pop that off. Yep. And there needs to be more weight on it here
Yeah.
for it to come down. But once you lock it off, go ahead and lock it this way. Yep. And then you're going to tie a slip knot right here. And that slip knot's just making a loop and sticking a bite together. Just like that. Just make sure it's tied this direction because If you tie it this way, it kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
But if it hits this, it's just going to come untied.
Do you use my slip knot instead of an overhand just because it's quicker to release?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if it does get jammed up in, that's why we're tying it really close to. It's a good question. Is that if it does get jammed up in there, I can still untie it.
Okay.
Where if it was an overhand and it got jammed, you may not be able to untie it. You know, because there's so much pressure on that.
Okay. So here and then just a knot through it.
There it is. Yeah.
But it would be
And then I
close.
try to get it super close because if it's too far away and it does get a running start, they can seat down really tight and then become difficult to undo. Nice. Yeah.
Can I play it?
Yeah. Second lanyard here, and I've got a griggery on me, so if I just needed to position myself a little bit differently, like say the cat was, you know, over there or something,
Yeah.
I could do. Let's see if I did too far.
Yeah. Very nice.
Glad you're filming.
Yeah. This is the part, yeah, that I'm over. Oh, okay.
Good job.
So you try you.
I can connect that. It's really graceful.
Is that a cinch? Is that a cinch there? Your device?
No, this is a griggery.
Oh, that's a griggery. Sorry. Okay.
So I could just use that to position myself. And I could let this out some.
Okay.
Position myself over here. And then I just transfer myself back into this.
Okay.
So if I had two, like here, if I
Yeah.
wanted to fully transfer onto this system,
Yeah.
I could just set up my rig with another lanyard, maybe go over there, or go over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep kind of
Moving around. It gives you three. Yeah. Awesome. Very cool.